dictator to the north is now flexing his authoritarian muscle. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below, and we have to talk about this. Now, our neighbors to the north have a dictator. And he's pretty much proven himself to be so, as you saw his behavior during the COVID restrictions, which were very unpopular, and how he treated his people. He is now using the event in Uvalde, it's something that happened in another country, to impose a freeze on handgun sales. Now, we know what that means. He's using just politics and political speech. We know what he's talking about. He's talking about straight up, he's gonna just straight ban all handgun sales, transfer, and so forth in the country of Canada. He can get away with this because they have a parliamentary type system where it's technically a mob rule. Whoever's got the majority is pretty much gonna get anything they want. They don't have recourses through the courts as we do. And they also don't have a constitution where clearly states in our Constitution that we have the right to bear arms. They do not have that, so they have to fall to the whims of a man who, it's just amazing that the taxpayers of that country support having armed security everywhere he goes. You remember during the COVID restrictions, he pretty much put himself in hiding. So don't let me go there, but let's watch a video of him and his proposals.
Introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns. We're also fighting gun smuggling and trafficking by increasing maximum criminal penalties and providing more tools for law enforcement to investigate firearm crimes. And we'll require the permanent alteration of long gun magazines so they can never hold more than 5 rounds. These are actions that doctors, experts, and chiefs of police have been calling for years, and we're acting on their advice. We need less gun violence. We cannot let the guns debate become so polarized that nothing gets done. We cannot let that happen in our country.
You saw that, you heard that, and as on top of the handgun freeze, he's also trying to get a 5-round magazine limit. Now, I can't think of any semi-automatic that currently there's a 5-round magazine made for it. So this is effectively banning a whole lot of stuff just by the fact that you don't have the proper equipment to make it function. But let's read on further here in a CBS article here titled, Canada's Trudeau proposes national freeze on handgun ownership. Toronto, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government introduced legislation Monday that would put a freeze on importing, buying, or selling handguns. We are capping the number of handguns in this country, Trudeau said. Capping the number of handguns in the hands of law-abiding citizens, because I'm pretty sure the criminal elements can keep doing what they're doing. But the regulation to halt the growth of personally owned handguns is expected to be enacted this fall. Quote, as you heard in the video, it'd be illegal to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada, the Prime Minister said. Families of shooting victims joined him at a press conference in Ottawa. I wonder if he had victims of vehicular homicide or victims of knife violence or victims of, remember, they had a truck attack, killed 10 people. Was Ottawa? Did he get any of those victims' families to come up with it? Of course not. They don't count. Canada already has plans to ban 1,500 types of military-style firearms and offer a mandatory buyback program that will begin at the end of the year. I wish him the best of luck with that. Trudeau said if someone really wants to keep their assault weapon, it will be made completely inoperable. Canada already expanded background checks. Trudeau has had plans to enact tougher gun laws, but the introduction of the new measure comes after the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York this month. So he's exploiting the shootings in another country to justify this, which has nothing to do with safety and crime, because telling good people what they can and cannot do does not prevent crime. You know, you can beat them over the head with that fact, but what can you do? Other than using firearms for sport, shooting, and hunting, there's no reason anyone in Canada should need guns in their everyday lives. Trudeau said we need less gun violence. The everyday person who has a gun in their life, you don't have to worry about them. But he's not addressing the criminal element. Because the only ones that are going to follow this are the law-abiding, if they follow it. Because this may be the point where people just say, you know what, screw you. This might be it. This might be their shot around the world. Some people may say, you know what, screw you. But we cannot let the gun debate become so polarized for a person who is polarizing it. That's funny, that nothing gets done. We cannot let that happen in our country. This is about freedom. People should be free to go to the supermarket, their schools, or their place of worship without fear. God help us. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino called the legislation the most significant step Canada has taken in a generation. Countries that do a good job of controlling guns do a good job of controlling gun violence, but not violence. Gun violence, but not violence. This is disingenuous language, and you gotta, and trust me, I got a whole lot to say, because coming up soon, because Biden had a lot to say, and he says some real dumb stuff also. Good. Mendicino said in an interview with the Associated Press, Bill Blair, Minister of Emergency Preparedness in Canada, is very different from the United States. In Canada, gun ownership is a privilege, not a right. That's the one fault that's hurting them. Blair said, this is a principle that differentiates ourselves from many other countries in the world, notably our colleagues and friends to the south. Yes, it is not a right. That's why they can do this and get away with it. As long as they have the majority rule, which is a parliamentary system that they have, and they don't have the grievances, like the legal grievances, like we can take a decision we don't like to the courts. They can't really do that. That's why he could lock down the entire country and nobody could say squat about it. Canada has far fewer mass shootings than the US, in part because of the lack of easy access to guns. But how many murders have they had? See, once again, it's just twisted language. Yeah, we haven't had much gun shootings, but people are being killed left and right by other implements, but we're going to ignore that because it's not, it's all about guns. But though the U.S. population is far larger than Canada, that's where the per capita data comes in. But the Reuters news agency notes that Canada's rate of homicide involving firearms is 0.5 per 100,000 people, compared with a rate of 4.12 in the U.S., according to 2021 analysis by the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. But once again, they're leaving out the part that the fact that they don't have as many firearms as we do. They have a smaller population, but they're not talking about. But notice it. How about we tell us how many murders they had per capita? You're going to find they're right on par with us. But once again, it's just twisted language. And here we go. Canada can teach us a lot. What? How to abuse the citizens who have no constitutional rights? Yeah, they're good at that. Tweeted Bruce Heyman, a former U.S. ambassador to Canada under the Obama administration. Blair pointed out that guns are often smuggled in illegally from the U.S., which he had noted is one of the largest small arms arsenals in the world. And it also keeps us the freest country in the world. The government plans to fight gun smuggling and trafficking by increasing criminal penalties, providing more tools to investigate firearms crimes, and strengthening border measures. Trudeau said increased funding already helped border officials double the number of smuggled guns confiscated at the U.S. border. The government said the bill would also allow for the removal of gun licenses from people involved in acts of domestic violence or criminal harassment such as stalking. That's already in place, for the most part. And I don't necessarily disagree that if you have a tendency for violence, you shouldn't have a gun. But the bill would create a new red flag law allowing courts to require that people consider the danger to themselves or others surrender their firearms to police. Based on what criteria? Just the word of another person? That gets nasty quick. The government said the measure would guard the safety of those applying through the process, often women in danger of domestic abuse, by protecting their identities. The government said it will require rifle magazines to be permanently altered so they can never hold more than 5 rounds, and will ban the sale and transfer of large capacity magazines under the criminal code. In addition, the legislation will prohibit some toys that look like actual guns, such as airsoft rifles, Reuters said, adding that Justice Minister David Lametti told reporters that because they look the same as real firearms, police need to treat them as if they are real. This has led to tragic consequences. It's another subject. Trudeau said his government recognizes the vast majority of Canadians who own guns are responsible, but the level of gun violence is unacceptable. So in order to counter that, acknowledge that most Canadian gun owners are good people, but we have too much gun violence, so we're going to make laws against the people that we know aren't doing anything. That makes sense to me. Mendocino said they are aware the announcement will lead to a rush to buy guns because, well, duh, before the law is enacted, and urged Parliament to pass it as soon as possible. The new measures are assured of passing in Canada's Parliament as the ruling Liberals and leftist opposition, New Democrats, have enough votes. That's how a parliamentary system, that is a true democracy, is a mob rule system. The majority decides. And thank God that we had some people hundreds of years ago understood that this is not a good idea of a mob rule system. Now you could say, well, you know what, man, we should have that because, well, you have to think about the laws that have been put in place because of a mob rule that would then eventually overturn because the minority has the power to, the majority does not rule the minority. The minority can bring their grievances to the court. You should thank the founding fathers for the ideal, because there are a lot of laws that have been passed throughout history and even recently that were found to be unconstitutional and wrong because the minority brought it to the courts and the court said, nah, you can't do that. Now, you can have an opinion one way or another about the subject, but think about it. Gay marriage. The majority voted against it. There's a bill in California. It was called H.R. 8 that banned gay marriage in California. The minority took it to the courts and the court said it's unconstitutional. So if we had a system like Canada's, H.R. 8 would stand. Every majority rule would stand. So you gotta be careful of stuff like that. They don't have that here in Canada. They're pretty much stuck with the majority rule. And they keep voting these people in, so what do you want, But yeah, Pierre Poilievre, who is running to be leader of the Conservative Party, said law-abiding gun owners should be respected and dangerous criminals should be jailed. The head of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, Rod Giltaca, called the proposed handgun freeze absurd, according to Reuters. He said authorities aren't using the tools they already had to take on gun violence, such as contacting people listed as references on gun license applications. Now, you heard my commentary in between there, and there's not really much more I can say because this is just going in the wrong direction. Because the only people who will follow this are the people who are the ones that he claims are the law-abiding, the ones he actually acknowledges are good people and will not do anything wrong. But all these rules he has put in place are going against them. How does that reduce gun violence? It doesn't. But he, once again, is just playing the typical liberal role, or the modern liberal role, because the modern day liberal is an authoritarian, not the true definition of a liberal. And he is exploiting tragedies here in the US to pass laws in his country that have nothing to do with the gun violence in his country. This isn't going to work. They know it. And as the violence continues, they're just going to use it as an excuse to expand even more and more and more gun control laws that once again won't change the face of violence in the country. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. You get notified the next time the video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.